Welcome to Black Nouveau. This is our episode for May. I'm Joanne Williams. Our nation is moving toward two societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal. That was the finding of the Kerner Commission 50 years ago. We'll discuss why things are different now, but not much better. We'll profile Cedric Heard, a spoken word artist who uses poetry to inspire listeners to connect with their feelings. And speaking of feelings, Liddy Collins talks with psychologist Starlette Patterson-Biddle about women and mental health. You know, a game of chess can go on for hours, or it can be over in minutes. It depends on how skilled you are. Maurice Ashley, a Jamaican-American author, commentator, and puzzle inventor, is very skilled. He's an American chess grandmaster. 2 years ago, he was inducted into the U.S. Chess Hall of Fame. We're talking to Maurice Ashley, a grandmaster chess champion, into the Chess Hall of Fame. Congratulations for that.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Let me ask you a couple of questions about chess and young people. I know you think it's important for young folks to learn how to play the game. Why is it important and what can it do for them?
Chess is a great game to teach young people because of all the life skills that they develop. If you think about when people are playing chess, they're stopping, they're thinking, they're wondering what they should do next, trying to analyze the different possibilities. They're trying to look ahead. These are all skills you want young people, not just young people, but adults to have. And chess teaches you to focus, to be more disciplined, to really concentrate on your options and the various possibilities, and very critically, to be able to think about what the other person wants to do. A lot of us are all about ourselves, especially kids, but chess says if you're not going to be concerned about your opponent, then you're going to miss something that they're trying to do. And so the game is really, to me, a discipline masking as a game. The great thing is it's so much fun that young people take to it like ducks to water, but they get all those additional skills that the game teaches as well.
Well, how did you get interested in it? Did you take to it like a duck?
Man, I had a friend of mine in high school that whooped my butt so bad, I was not happy. I very fortunately, though, saw a chess book in the library. I checked out the book, I started reading, and I found out about all these great players from the past. These epic names are in the World Chess Hall of Fame today. And I just fell in love. And I said, I want to do this. I want to just keep getting better and better. And so I kept playing all the time in the parks in New York and then finally in the clubs. And then beyond my city, started playing around the country and around the world.
I saw a video of you playing in a park in New York with a trash talker called Wilson. And the whole game, if it was shown in real time, only took 4 minutes and some. Is that the average length of a game when you play somebody like that?
What's going on now? I've heard of this rule.
Well, it was a blitz game we played with a clock, and that does happen very, very fast. You got to think fast on your feet. And also, we were trash talking each other the whole time. So that's a part of the fun banter going back and forth when you're playing in the parks. In the serious chess events, U.S. Chess Championship, for example, there's no talking and it's much slower. But we get to talk, I get to talk with my colleagues because we do commentary on the games and break it down live so that the average chess fan can know exactly what's going on in the minds of the players, the moves and the psychology. And even though it might take 3 or 4 hours for the game to complete, it's really like watching a full game of football or basketball and having the commentary really bring it to life.
So you do play-by-play for chess?
I do. That's my main occupation. As a matter of fact, right now, I'm no longer a player, much more so a commentator around the world, doing commentary on the best chess events on the planet. And it's been quite a fun being able to trash talk the top players, just being able to sit on the side and enjoy being a fan of the sport.
Now, I saw that there are 2 areas, people who were honored in the Hall of Fame. There's the men's division and there's the women's division. Why are there 2? Why are the women separate from the men?
In the Hall of Fame, no, there is no separation in the Hall of Fame. In the championships itself, when there's U.S. and the U.S. Women's Championship, that's the reason for that in the championship is because historically women have not participated in the kind of numbers in chess as much as men have. And I think part of the reason for that is the society's problem. The society doesn't push women, push young girls to play, especially when they hit about 12, 13, 14. You know, parents shy away from having their young girls hanging around the boys playing chess, and that causes the girls to just not be able to interact as much with the boys, be able to play the best chess they can play, because they're worried about things, ancillary things that have nothing to do with playing the game itself. So you find on the professional level, it's about 94% male versus 6% female. So that difference does exist. And because of that disparity, it's harder for women to rise as fast to the top. And you find that by keeping the championship separate, women have an opportunity to grow amongst themselves, so to speak. But we are really looking to try to change that. We want more and more girls to play as much as possible, and then we'll be able to erase that as a vestige of the past.
Tell me briefly, what does the Chess Hall of Fame do?
The Hall of Fame itself recognizes the great accomplishments of chess players from all throughout history. And so you have the great names like Bobby Fischer, who was the world champion, the American world champion, Garry Kasparov, who was champion for 15 years, played against the machine. You have players from the 1800s all the way to the present. And we're going to be inducting a couple of players from the early 1900s, Aaron Nimzovich and Richard Reddy. They are names that chess players know. You say them, just rings down through history. But also, we're going to do an American. Alexander Onischuk, he's won the U.S. title. He's also played for the American Olympic team. Great guy from Lubbock, Texas, and he will be honored. And when you see players like that getting honored, when you enter the Hall of Fame, that's just a pinnacle of your career. It means that you're recognized of having accomplished something amazing.
Well, I know you have accomplished some amazing achievements too. So tell us how we can get more information about the Hall of Fame. How do we get in touch?
Well, the Hall of Fame, very easy, worldchesshof.org, HOF for Hall of Fame, worldchesshof.org. And if you want to find out everything about chess in the United States, then uschesschamps.com is the place to go.
All right, thank you very much for talking with us. And congratulations on being a grandmaster in chess.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Several years ago, you won quite a few awards.
A lot of them.
And one of the goals was to win back some of those awards that you used to get. How are you doing on that?
Today we want kids to express their feelings, even though we have adults who have not dealt with early trauma, which causes intergenerational trauma, which affects our kids. So we want to.
Making it okay. Let's talk about it.
That's what Dr. Starlet Patterson-Biddle does in her practice. Make it okay for people to talk about mental health issues, starting with women. If our minds aren't thinking correctly, our behaviors are not behaving correctly. Women's mental health differ from men because of the social demands placed upon them, such as parenting and hormones. Dr. Patterson-Biddle describes some of the often overlooked mental health issues in women.
There are a lot of things that affect a woman on a daily basis that we don't really talk about, such as a woman who is on, say, birth control because she doesn't want any more babies. And that effect, based upon, her ability to manage day-to-day life and the effects of the birth control on her even mental stability. Some birth control may make her a little more agitated. The fact that she may be about to enter into menopause or something like that may be affecting her mental stability at that time. A lot of times we see it depression. So we'll see a woman withdraw. We'll see a woman be a little more irritable, a little more agitated, a little more, snappy, yelling. Okay? We may even see a woman cry. Okay? We may see a woman overeat or not eat at all. A lot of times we're so focused on what the woman is doing for others, we're not looking at what she's not doing for herself or the behaviors or the signs that she's showing.
Women need to pay attention to what's changing.
Is there a reason why your hair is falling out on the sides? It may just not be because of the new product you're using. It may be because of stress. Is there a reason why your face is breaking out? Or you're having more headaches and you're doing this more often? Is it because your brain is overwhelmed? Is it that you're gaining weight or losing weight? Is it that you're sleeping more, not able to sleep at night? Those are all signs that something is going on. You know, I believe that, you know, sometimes the people closest to us will see things going on with us that we don't see. And I think not just professionals, but just in our own social groups, if we're seeing that our sister, our mother, our cousin, whomever, our best friend is changing in some sort of way, pull them to the side and say, look, these are the things that I'm noticing. How can I help? Because I'm noticing those things. Sometimes women, we're so wound up with everything that's going on, we don't even realize that the hair on the side is getting a little thinner than it was a couple weeks ago, okay? Pulling them to the side, and then if they agree to it, then say, hey, look, I know a excellent resource that can potentially help you with this. Because a lot of people, they're just like, okay, that's not my business. I'm not gonna help that person. Well, the end to all of that. It's too many things that are going on in the community, especially not just women, but all over. To say it's none of my business anymore is not okay. We gotta step in and we gotta say, look, I'm noticing this. I'm here to help. I'm here to support you. Or these are the areas that I know that I can guide you towards that can give you support when you're ready.
You know, today we're going to talk about feelings. We're going to have our little session, and we're going to talk about how we express our feelings. If we're feeling happy, yeah, or sad, or mad, right? We have to talk about it. And sometimes it's hard to talk about it.
How do our children feel the effects of this?
You know what, I like how you said that, feel. One thing about, you know, that's cool about being a mother is that our kids feel what we're going through. And, you know, on a day when a mother is feeling agitated, you know, you notice that the kids kind of act out a little bit more when the mom is feeling agitated. They feel that energy. Our kids feel our energy. When we're sad, our kids may cling to us a little bit more because they feel that we need them close to us. If we're happy, they're energetic. Their grades may even improve over time if we're happy and we have this positive spirit going on. They feel us. And so we have to, as women, we have to pay attention to that. And we got to put these things in check if there's some things going on with us because, again, these kids are passive recipients of what's going on with us. If we're tired and laying around all day, they're going to be tired and laying around all day. If we're not motivated, they're not going to be motivated. And so I think helping the mothers, helping women, even outside of just the mothers, just to build them up will directly help the kids. We have to make it okay for people to say that they're not okay. In the community, when a person says, I'm not okay, it's seen as being weak. Nobody wants to be seen as weak or not being in control. But really, everybody feels like that at some time. And we have to let people know that it's okay to not be the coolest or the strongest. It's okay to have a vulnerable moment and to get help. And normalizing that. Making it where, okay, look, just like you going to the dentist, I'm going to see my therapist, or just like I'm going to the gym to work out, I got to go get my mental workout and go see my therapist. It's okay.
For years, you have been selling to me. And I would constantly buy all your products. See, I was your #1 customer. You advertised to me things you promised would replenish me, but ironically, every time I was starving, I would end up feeding you. See, I should have known you never keep your word. When I realized that for every purchase you never allowed for any returns, I should never have skimmed past reading your conditions and your terms. See, when I was younger, I wasn't always this vocal. Speech issues had my confidence in a chokehold. Insecurity crept in and made me immobile. It felt like all the kids around me could make circles and I was an oval. When I was younger, I dealt with a lot of speech issues. Dealt with dentists, doctors, all telling me that I would have complications with my speech. For whatever reason, just in how I was made, I don't even know why, I'm born with the extra cartilage on my tongue. And doctors and dentists were telling me if I never had surgery, I would always have complications with my speech. I'm 26 years old today, never had surgery. But I say that growing up, it impacted me mentally, it impacted me up here, because I heard professionals say I would have a problem. So I grew up thinking I was different. I grew up thinking that I had a problem with my speech. Because of that, I was really quiet, I was really hesitant just to really express myself. But now, I say 26 years old now, the very thing that I thought was a hindrance, I'm now able to use and encourage other people.
Milwaukee native Cedric Heard is a spoken word poet who also is a licensed mental health therapist. Cedric uses his poetic talents as therapy for those struggling in life.
It wasn't until middle school that I fully became aware that I was black in a white school. Like all of a sudden, implicit racist comments were now seen as cool. I could have held my pen differently and I would have been labeled as ghetto. From the same kids only a few years ago, we were building the same cities with the same Legos, but now I was urban. Like all of a sudden, my blackness became a burden, no longer a person, but a different version, and it became worse because when I got mad, best believe they could see my anger, but they couldn't see that I was hurting. So they ain't realized that anger was just sign language for those who didn't know how to articulate their hurt. So it was hard to focus on classrooms because of what went down by lockers. And because my attention was off that day, my teacher decided to tell my class that I was lazy. More and more millennials, they're depressed. They don't really know their life purpose, not necessarily because they don't have that, it's because they want everything to come quickly. And it's so easy to get caught up on what you're seeing on social media. The millennial generation, we are creative, we are smart, but we also need to know that sometimes life is just a process. And just because life isn't perfect right now or how you think it should be doesn't mean that you're failing at life, doesn't mean you're not going about it the right way. It's just a process. And again, processes, it helps us to develop. A few days later, a rumor was started that I was getting high because I was crying in the bathroom, and when I got out, my eyes were hazy, but I guess when they just see you as black, you automatically become shady. Dented lockers by my fist were just depictions of a beat-up heart caused by their insensitivity. See, being young, black, and angry isn't some innate proclivity, but maybe it's just expressed vividly because our hope and dignity is held in captivity by passed down generations of implicitly played out forms of bigotry, dear approval. I like to say that counseling is just providing people tools in their toolbox. So when something's broken and needs fixing in your life, you can go to the toolbox because you now have the right tools. It's not to say that something is wrong with you, that you're less than. It's nothing like that. It's just providing tools that you may have missed. In high school, I faced the lies told by acne coming at me. Told me that no girl could possibly receive the letters of my heart because of what was stamped on my face, so I didn't want to be seen, so I found safety in women on computer screens, but safety is just a fancy word for snares when your insecurity leads approval. When I was torn, you offered me porn. Responsibility with the gift that I have, with writing, with words, is to provide people a hope ultimately greater than the hype. College. I was attracted to broken women because I would use their broken pieces to build me up. I would use their ruins to fortify my own castle. Listen, don't get it twisted. I was genuinely concerned about their pain. And taking advantage of them physically wasn't in my game, but it just felt good that they needed me. Felt good that I could knit hearts back together that had previously been torn. Felt good to hear the sounds of sweet melodies that said, Cedric, you ain't like all them other guys. You see, when approval starts to hold hands with pride, you start taking on tasks that were only meant for God. Poetry and therapy merging. I think of the interactions that happen after the performance. When audience members, when people come up to you and say, you know, that one thing that you said that really resonated with my life. Don't let a moment of your life define your forever. When people say, hey, Cedric, you don't even know me, but you've just said my whole life story in a 3-minute poem. The things that you are going through now, the things that you went through, it was a moment, but it is not your forever. God is continually writing our story. He's continually writing our script. We just have to realize that he's writing it. So when I hear things like that, that's encouraging to me. Like, wow, I'm on the right track. And it also shows me that poetry can be that bridge. It can connect people to pain on one side, and then you're giving them hope of what healing looks like.
In 1967, the Kerner Commission was formed to determine the causes behind civil unrest in many urban areas in the United States. The report released in 1968 noted, "Our nation is moving toward two societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal." It said that poor police relations, housing inequities, economic disparities, and biased media coverage of the black community were major factors. Among the recommendations it offered, diversifying police forces, providing pathway to jobs for African Americans, and changing the pattern of urban housing for the poor. 50 years later, some of the conditions the report cited have changed, but many of the problems still exist. Joining us to discuss this are Fred Royal, president of the Milwaukee branch of the NAACP, and Reggie Jackson, head griot for America's Black Holocaust Museum. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you. So Fred, what happened 50 years ago?
Well, I think what we saw was the frustration of the black community being ignored. Opportunities for advancement weren't being extended to the black community as freely as it was to the white community or European Americans. Over-policing, the lack of housing, basically the same issues that we're confronted with today.
Reggie, other cities were rioting big time. Milwaukee didn't quite combust like that. What happened here?
Well, I think part of it was the fact that there was a smaller population of blacks in the city of Milwaukee, and also that it was confined to the district that was on 3rd Street, which is where the remains of the black business district was. So there wasn't this expansive, large area that blacks were in, even geographically in terms of where they lived either. And the response by the state and the city in terms of getting authorities in was very, very swift as a result of some other cities kind of doing it at a slower pace. Milwaukee jumped on it right away.
Now, laws were passed, and that's a good thing. But the laws didn't seem to have the teeth that they needed to get much done. Why is that?
Well, the primary law that we were fighting for at that particular time was a Fair Housing Act, and so the federal government passed Fair Housing Act. However, the way that it was implemented, so one of the first people who was in charge of implementing the Fair Housing Act was George Romney, Mitt Romney's dad. So he created a program called Open Communities, and what he threatened to do was to use the power of that law to threaten any communities that were still discriminating in housing by taking away federal funds for big projects, highway projects, sewer projects, whatever. And he told them, if you're still discriminating, we'll cut you off. So these communities got letters, and they called the White House immediately, complained, and President Nixon was very displeased with this program, and he said the famous words, "Knock it in the head now."
Fred, what other laws were passed?
Well, when we look at employment, we'll look at Section 3. Which stated federal projects that received federal dollars like West Lawn or even our federal highway system, there was a requirement for low and unemployed individuals from the area to get first dibs or consideration, a quota system, to participate in those projects. You also look at the low-income tax credits for affordable housing. These were remnants from that era that aren't being administered and enforced the way they were written. The low-income housing tax credit says that any development that receives this type of funding has set-asides for individuals that have a certain threshold, 60% of the median income for a particular area. But it's not being afforded to those individuals. It's being afforded to college students or folks that are on pensions instead of the minorities who that benefit was intended to be delivered to.
Who's responsible for that?
Well, I think that would be our government, because there's supposed to be an audit process to ensure that they're in compliance. When you look at people that are actually doing the compliance audits, in some instances, they work for the developer instead of working for the taxpayer, us. So they're going to ensure that the developer's interests are met instead of the taxpayer's interests.
Now, Reggie, we have more black elected officials today than we did back then. How come things remain the same when it comes to passing these laws, and not passing them, but just getting them, putting more teeth into them?
Well, I think part of it is that we thought that just simply electing blacks to office would be the cure-all. And what we found was that we need more than just having officials in office on a local level. You need it more on the state level as well, because many of the laws that are impacting these things today are laws that are passed on the state level. And we have very small representation on the state government level. And so local control really does not necessitate those changes that we thought would come about. A lot of those changes have to happen on the state level and even on the federal level, where the representation of African Americans is still very low.
Fred, we talked about hypersegregation. You don't really have a problem with segregation per se. Why is that?
Because if you look at politics, politics is supposed to be the distribution of resources. So if you have equal representation on your local level, there should be equal distribution of those allocation of resources. We're not seeing that, right? We see a huge investment in downtown Milwaukee, but we don't see any investment in the central city of Milwaukee. We see huge investments in our parochial schools in the outlying areas, but we see little investment in our MPS schools. So I think that when you talk about where the disparities lies, it's all in the distribution of resources, and that's what politics is all about.
And that's not happening?
Not at all.
We'll continue part 2 of this conversation on our next program.
Join us next month on Thursday, June 7th at 9 p.m. right here on Channel 10. If you missed an episode, you can find us at milwaukeepbs.org and like us on Facebook. Or you can give us a call. We want to hear from you. The number is 414-797-3760.
We note the recent passing of Vel Phillips, a trailblazer and civil rights advocate. She was the first woman and the first African American elected to Milwaukee's Common Council. She was the first woman judge in Milwaukee County. And she was the first African American to hold statewide elected office by winning the position of Secretary of State in 1978. There is a web exclusive of remembrances on the Milwaukee PBS website.
And that's our program for this month. For Black Nouveau, I'm Joanne Williams. Thanks for watching.